Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
Rodgers is a great regular season quarterback who has won one Super Bowl.
Oh my God. You can't call him a regular season quarterback. That's like saying James Harden's a good playoff performer, but we'll get into it.
We will get into it.
Sorry, my sweatshirt has to come off for the Harden talk.
I think it's time to change this to some basketball. There's a reason that Tom Brady lasted until he's 45.
Exactly.
It's not just because that he did these ridiculous what?
Pause.
Oh.
All right, thanks for tuning back to the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker
And Tyksinski.
and Caleb Tyksinski.
Yeah, we got our first return guest. So, you want to talk a little bit about how your season went?
Yeah, that's not a problem. So we ended up losing by 2 points in the quarterfinals to Catholic. It was a tough game, definitely. We played really well. It was our best finish that we've ever had at Susquehanna. And honestly, with everything that we had a lot of injuries to one of our best our senior and our president actually got hurt in our preseason game and basically couldn't play the rest of the season. So we had a lot of guys like that who got injured, a lot of key players. And also for a few games, we had like half our team out with COVID. So for all that to happen and finish where we were, I'm very proud of how it ended.
And now you're ready for next season?
Well, I'm actually going to Spain next season.
Oh, yeah, you told me.
I'll be watching our team play, but I'll be playing rugby and having fun while they're working as hard as they can.
Yeah.
What was your biggest takeaway from the season?
Honestly, how good our underclassmen are and how scary our team's going to be in the future. And that's the most important thing, is making sure that not only the upperclassmen get the chance to come out with wins, but making sure that our underclassmen really understand how the game works. Because, like I said before, most of our team has played rugby before, besides a few guys. And that was true for a lot of our underclassmen as well. Or to be playing at a level like that. So for them to come in and step up when they had to was very important. One of the reasons why we finished is 6th in the nation.
You said you're going to be in Sevilla, right?
Yeah.
You excited?
I'm very excited. I don't know what I'm going to be exactly doing rugby-wise. I still have to talk to the school about it and see if I can either play at the university or for a club. But I'll definitely be going to there's a huge soccer rivalry in Sevilla and La Liga. Sevilla FC kind of sucks right now, but to go to one of their games would be cool. For La Liga, I'm a Barca fan, so if I could go to a Barca game versus Sevilla, that would be cool. And then there's a rugby team that plays there as well. So if I could get to both of those and then just explore the city and just hang out, meet a lot of people, that's what I want to do. Play a little bit of rugby here.
Dude, if you could see any soccer there, that'd be a treat.
I want to so bad. I mean, I've only seen La Liga games. So I understand how the fans are, but to actually go to one of them would be absolutely awesome.
We're going to go right into the NFL. I don't know how this episode's going to go. Slay's giving me the stink guy because we were talking about the Sixers the other night. But yeah, we'll start NFL, keep it light. Let's start off with the Eagles. This was probably one of the biggest storyline games. We talked about it last week. Gardner Minshew played a really great game. I just want to say those 2 picks were not his fault. Both were Quez's fault. And we're going to go on a Quez rampage in a second. But yeah, for him to keep it that close against a top 7 team in the NFL is really impressive, especially when he had close to 0 reps up until this week, and we're in week 16 at this point. But yeah, Gardner played a great game. The Cowboys took advantage of the late swap.
Going into this game, you obviously knew it was going to be a close, very, very hard-fought game. We all expected that, and that's what it pretty much was from the jump. Obviously, Eagles jumped up 10-0, and then Cowboys fought back. And from that point on, you knew that this was going to be a very tightly contested battle. And I agree with you. Minshew, he played his heart out, flat out. For him to come in there, he missed a day of practice last week for the Mike Leach funeral. I have a lot of respect for him for that, for coming out and playing the way he did and leading them the way he did. 34 points is nothing to be ashamed of. I know he threw 2 interceptions. The one fumble obviously was just a misexchange between him and Scott. I thought Scott should have had that. The ball was a little high. Like Minshew put it more in his chest than the stomach, but at the same time, you're an NFL running back. That ball has to be cleanly handed off to the running back. As for the interceptions, Quez on the first one, he needs to finish his route, and he can't let the defender get on his back like the way he did. I believe it was Javon Curse. He can't let that happen. And then the second one, I do feel like Quez was a little open, and I thought the ball was a little poorly thrown, but at the same time, an NFL receiver should be capable of making that catch, and Quez Watkins probably knows himself that he should have caught that ball. And I don't want to harp on Quez too much, but it's sort of frustrating how we don't get as much great production from the wide receiver 3 position that we should, I feel like, because with the weapons we have, the deep ball should open up as much as it can for a quick guy and someone who can get open down the field. We saw in 2017, obviously, with Torrey Smith. You had Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar and Zach Ertz, who were mainly intermediate and short-range catchers, because they were just surefire targets every time. And that's what we have with AJ, Devontae, and Goddard. However, Torrey Smith was so productive that year because of how he was able to get open deep and have that valve for Carson Wentz. I don't see that out of Quez this year. He doesn't have the explosion that I thought he did, and he doesn't have the ability to get open deep that I thought he did. You can't just run in a straight line and expect to get open anywhere, college or the NFL, but especially the NFL. And Quez, I just don't really feel like he has the it that could keep him on the field. I do think the Eagles should look to upgrade that position, because I think that it's very capable of getting upgraded.
Yeah, he had a good first 3 weeks, and you didn't see a single thing out of him after that.
And I'm not trying to put the blame of the loss on Quez Watkins either. I'm just saying that's a glaring thing that I see in the offense, and especially when a guy like Hurts comes out and you have to plug your backup in, having that third receiver is important. We saw that Minshew targeted Watkins a lot, and we don't see Hurts target Watkins really in the intermediate game, but we saw Minshew probably make 4 or 5 throws to him. We needed him that game, and he didn't really come up big. It hurt us in the end, and I can't harp on the offense that much at all. That's pretty much the only negatives I have to say for them. The 4 turnovers need to get fixed, but I'm not too worried about it. Sanders fumble doesn't happen often. I'm not worried about that. And our real quarterback, Hurts, comes in and he doesn't throw 2 interceptions in many games ever. So I'm not worried about the turnovers aspect. We do a great job of taking care of the ball. The defense is what worries me.
I was going to say that too.
Yeah. We sat in a zone the whole game, and Dak did not throw an incompletion against our zone. Didn't throw 1 incompletion. I don't want to jump on Jonathan Gannon because that's obviously what Philadelphia is doing right now. I feel like it was sort of execution this week. I don't think Darius Slay had a good game. I don't think missing Avonte Maddox, in the early portion of that game, and then he obviously misses every other play. He played the early game, and he played it very well. He missed the sack on that 3rd and 5. That was so infuriating. Dak got out of it. Obviously had the other sack, and, missing him for 3 quarters, 2.5 quarters is huge for us. Plugging in a guy like Josiah Scott is a huge drop-off, and it showed, obviously, I don't really want to get into the X's and O's of everything, but the 3rd and 30 can't happen. Yeah. It just can't happen. And Darius Slay, I don't like his answers to the media this week. I don't like that he threw a player under the bus. He didn't actually come out and say who, but he did throw a player under the bus. And I don't like that from one of the leaders on our defense. I'm not worried, honestly. Yeah. I'm really not worried. I think having home field advantage is key in the playoffs. I think having a guy like Hurts is key in the playoffs. And I think that if we play this game in Philadelphia in January, it's a different result.
And did you guys see when Avonte Maddox was walking off with the injury and his
toe was up?
Yeah, I don't know if he was tucking it up to in form of a limp, but I don't think so. I think his toe was
broken. Yeah, that's what
I thought. That was scary just to look at.
What's also weird though is that it didn't look bad during the play.
Yeah.
I can't exactly tell what happened, which makes me think 2 things. One, it either got stuck in the turf in Dallas, which there's been a lot of turf injuries this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a big concern for a lot of the NFL players. The NFLPA, they've been talking about it all season, especially when it comes to MetLife, which is notorious for taking players out of turf. Or he injured it before and made it worse.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which, either way, is not good because when it's a turf injury, those can be very, very deceiving might not look bad and be a lot worse than it is, which is what it's sounding like. Or if it's a re-injured injury, that's pretty bad as well, because that could mean he's out longer than just this season. It could also mean early into next year, too. We just don't know at this point, obviously. My biggest concern about this game was another injury in Lane Johnson. If he's out, even for the short term, that's huge. And it sounded like this is also an injury that he had that he was trying to play through and just made it worse.
Yeah.
That's not good for the Eagles. Mm-hmm. Maybe he comes back for the playoffs. He's not going to be 100%. And if he gets hurt again, I can't stand Driscoll coming in at all. Mm-hmm. He's a flat-out horrible. Mm-hmm. He can't block anyone. And if you have to go up against the 49ers or Cowboys pass rush, forget it. Parsons blew by him in the first game. We barely survived that one. He did not do well when he came in, even for the short time for Lane Johnson. The 49ers pass rush is much better than Dallas, and we barely were stopping Dallas's.
Yeah. So these are some questions that the media were asking, and this is something I want to go into when it's about injuries. So one thing the Eagles could do is move Gardner Johnson back to corner for the slot. That's the position he played when he was in New Orleans, and he did relatively well. He won't get a lot of interceptions like he was doing at the beginning of the season, but at least it'll be better than what Josiah Scott was doing. Yeah. And I blame, here's the thing, I know that the 3rd and 30 was bad, but Josiah Scott was the one covering there. Yeah. It was again, you were talking about it. It wasn't man-to-man, it was zone.
Yeah.
So Slay had the zone covered.
Yeah, he had his flat zone.
But it went over Josiah Scott's head. And that's the biggest issue there, is that we need someone who understands how to play the zone. And Gardner Johnson, that's what he is known for. Yeah. And he can do that very well. Now, the question is then, who do we put at safety? Reed Blankenship, I think, has it.
I think he's playing.
Yeah, he stepped up.
Not only, I know everyone's going to talk about the interception, but his tackling is amazing. He's one of the best tacklers I think that I've seen the Eagles have besides Maddox. He will throw his body into every tackle, and he'll do it in a way that he won't injure himself, and he'll make sure that any player running at any offensive player will go down. And when it comes to our offensive line, we could move Mailata to right tackle and then put in Dillard. I know that Dillard isn't the best, but he's at least better than Driscoll. And Mailata more or less would stop. I mean, he's a stud.
Yeah, no, but Mailata hasn't been playing that well this year either. So you're having two guys that are questionable at your tackle position in the playoffs?
Yeah.
That's dicey.
Yeah.
That's understating it as dicey. That is a huge problem. And Mailata scares me a lot, too, because he just hasn't played this well this year. He's gotten a lot of false starts. He's gotten a lot of holding calls. He's missed a lot of easy blocks that I would expect for him to get after how he progressed last year. And it feels like he's sort of digressed to what he was at the beginning of his career, which doesn't make a lot of sense because now he's got the NFL experience that he didn't have at the beginning of his career.
I wanted to touch on the Driscoll thing, too, because it's kind of scary how far he's fallen because I thought last year when he filled in for, Sayamalu last year, he played well, and I think that that's his spot is the interior line, which I know he was drafted as a tackle, but it seemed like last year. Yeah, so I think that being on the interior, left or right guard is better for him, and I agree with Aiden. I'm definitely scared of the Lane injury. I hope he can come back. It doesn't sound like he's going to, honestly. The wording from the reports really has me nervous that he's going to miss the rest of the season overall. And I agree with Aiden that having Driscoll in there is extremely worrisome, especially when you have to go against Nick Bosa or Micah Parsons in January.
And I wouldn't be this concerned if the Eagles clinched the one spot, because then you give Lane 2 extra weeks to rest. And I don't know if they can right now.
Yeah.
They needed this win against the Cowboys. It was right there for them. They get that. Not only do they automatically win the 1 seed, but they also win the division against Dallas. It would have been just a huge, not only huge in the standings, but just mentally very motivating that you clinched all that against the Cowboys.
Yeah, on there.
Exactly. They didn't do that. New Orleans still can make the playoffs right now. It's a long shot. They haven't played very well. They're now 2 games back from Tampa Bay. They could still get it if they win 2 and Tampa Bay loses 2. They're going to be extra motivated to win this game. Plus, they also know that the Eagles had this draft pick that they traded to them. So now you also have that motivation of beating the team so they don't have a great draft pick like everyone was hoping they would.
Yeah.
You also have to be worried about the fact that the 49ers and Vikings are right on their tail. especially the Vikings, because they have had some miraculous comebacks, including last week against the Giants, in a game that they frankly probably should have lost.
Yeah.
And they just did the Vikings thing that they've done all year and have a comeback win and stay right within the Eagles' margins.
Yep.
Eagles fans, it feels like not only Eagles fans, but also Eagles players were very confident they were going to have the 1 seed, and it feels like the players sort of let up a little bit. Obviously, not having Hurts was a big factor in why they lost. However, you've got to win that game. You just have to. It feels like if they don't get the 1 seed, they're not going to go very far in the playoffs. And I frankly am not so sure they're going to go as far as people are thinking because of the way Minnesota's played. Because of the way, especially San Francisco played in the last 7 games.
Yeah.
San Francisco's the hottest team in football right now, and they got an upgraded quarterback in Purdy over Garoppolo. No one else wants to say it. It's an upgrade. Purdy is a much more athletic quarterback. He has not even had as many turnovers as Garoppolo, and Garoppolo, frankly, had very little turnovers. It's going to open up the offense for San Francisco in a way that it wouldn't when Garoppolo's your quarterback. It's going to make it a lot harder to defend. And their defense is just one of the best I've ever seen. It is impossible to game plan against their defense because they're going to throw blitzes at you. They're going to drop in the zone. They'll probably feel comfortable playing man against our wide receivers, which no team to this year its teams has been that confident. San Francisco's going to have no problem with that because they're going to think that their pass rush is going to get to Hurts before he has time to read the man. That's a very scary team.
Propose a question to the table. Do you guys think that the 49ers are the second best team in the NFC besides the Eagles?
Yeah, I would think, like, roster-wise, definitely. Like, obviously not record, but I think that talent perspective and roster perspective, yes. Like Aiden said, they have the best defense in the league. Like, I think pretty unquestionably, they have the best edge rusher, which is a huge plus for any defense. And they probably have the best linebacker in the league, too, in Fred Warner. No one in their secondary is anybody to scoff at. There are no weak spots, really, in their secondary. Yeah, what Aiden's saying is very true. And on the offensive side of the ball for the Niners, like Aiden said, Purdy is a better fit than Garoppolo. Maybe he's not a better quarterback. I think he personally is. But, obviously, that's up for debate. I think, unquestionably, he's a better fit for the 49ers. I think having the dual threat at QB is a huge plus for them. Garoppolo was pretty much a scarecrow. Like, it's tough to operate an offense with that. I think that they're the biggest threat to the Eagles in the NFC right now.
So I just want to say this. I agree that the 49ers are the biggest threat, but I disagree in the fact that we needed to beat Dallas. Just because it is a division rivalry game. I mean, I'm a little worried about the Saints, but honestly, that's a very much more easy win than it is playing against the Cowboys at their field without our starting quarterback after we beat it. I mean, we saw it. The only game we lost this year was to the Commanders. And again, it's another division rivalry game. Here's my thing. We have to win this week because I'm not betting anything on the Giants game.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
And we've seen in the NFL, like, when a team blows you out, usually doesn't happen in the second.
And that's the thing. Like, losing to Dallas, does it suck? Absolutely. Does it hurt our chances of getting the 1 seed? Absolutely. Was it a game we had to win? No. Is the Saints game? 100%.
And I say this every year in group chats, like we'll always like predict like the Eagles schedule and all that. And we'll get some really ridiculous answers as we're talking to Eagles fans here. And they'll be like, oh, this is the year we're going to go undefeated in the division. No, we won't.
It doesn't
And
matter.
every year I say they're going to go 4-2, 3-3. Like, no matter how good they are, it's just, that's how the NFC East is. Like, you'll never we're head and shoulders above the Commanders and Taylor Heineke, Carson Wentz. I don't care who's back there. Like, we're head and shoulders above them, but they can and will beat us one week out of the year.
Given Sunday. I completely agree. And, like, this, like you said, the NFC East, any year is a tough division to sweep. Dallas did it last year, I believe, and maybe it was 2020, I forget. They did it recently, though, but yeah, you're 100% right. And especially this year, it's tough to sweep this division because every team is a very solid team. Like, you're right, we are head and shoulders above the Commanders, but that's no knock on the Washington Commanders. The Washington Commanders are a good football team. Same with the New York Giants. Obviously, same with the Dallas Cowboys.
I mean,
they're great.
Daniel Jones isn't good, but that defense.
Yeah.
No, I mean that defense though. I mean, I watched the Giants Commanders game and I saw what Thibodeau did. He single-handedly won them that game.
He's a really good player.
Like everyone was saying, like, oh, he hasn't played that well. I'm like, you got to give him a chance, and that doing it on prime time, like he finally showed how good of an edge rusher he is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still don't love this knock on Daniel Jones anymore. There's still no line for him. There is still no offensive line. Most of the offense is still going to run through Saquon. And who is he passing to? None of these wide receivers would be on an NFL roster. They would all be practice squad guys that get cut early in the preseason. They're only there because Sterling Shepard got hurt.
Yeah.
Slayton was out for a while. These injuries have piled up have been ridiculous, and the fact that Daniel Jones has able to win with some of these guys he's passed to shows that if you give him actual weapons and go out and pay for guys that want to be on the Giants, it's going to go very well for you in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think there's something there for them to build on. Like, I don't know what he's going to ask for when the contract comes
And that's my thing. That was my thing. My question isn't because I'm not disagreeing. He's a decent NFL quarterback. My question is he your franchise guy? Are you 100% in on Danny Dimes?
I got the answer. It's no.
That's my thing. Gut reaction, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Like it was the same thing with Wentz when we signed him. It's like he's a good quarterback in certain situations, but is he your franchise guy?
But
No.
Daniel Jones never had as good of a
Right.
year as
No.
Carson did that one year.
But Carson was given one of the best offensive lines in football ever.
All right. But, like, do you really think Daniel Jones could walk into the Giants front office and ask for a lot of money? Because I don't think he did anything.
I don't think he can
in his
ask. No,
career
he's
prior.
not going to get the money he wants. I do agree with that. However, it's hard for you to be the Giants front office and say, "Hey, guess what? We gave you everything we could to get you to win."
Yeah, no.
You can't possibly
both things
say
are true,
you can't be Gettleman and possibly say we gave you every single piece to win a Super Bowl this year and you didn't do it. We're not giving you big money.
Oh, I'm not saying.
You think about it. The quarterbacks that got a lot of money. Dak was given every single opportunity to win a Super Bowl and couldn't do it, and he still got a ridiculous amount of money.
Kyler, too.
Exactly. All these guys did absolutely nothing to get this money. And here's Daniel Jones going out and has a winning record right now with a team that, frankly, if you gave them most other quarterbacks in the league, would be 500 or below.
Yeah, and I just think he's not flashy, and that is like sets a lot of the national fan base off of Daniel Jones, which I don't really agree with. Like, Daniel Jones is a very smart football player, so I think that
He can be at times, but he's still.
at a
He's still
team-friendly
kind of-
deal, I think he could be a good player.
Yeah.
Yes, but on another team, I think he could be very competitive. On the Giants, where they are though, unless they're they're willing to make some changes soon, because Saquon's not getting any younger, and he's going to be wanting a lot of money too. And I mean, you can let him walk. I don't disagree with that, but then you're putting all your money, all your cards in on Danny Dimes.
Yeah,
And with the line they have and the receivers you have, I don't think you can do that right now.
they're too depleted to give Danny Dimes money of all people. Like, they need to either draft exceptionally well or sign a bunch of guys. But I don't know how you're going to bring guys to the Giants of all places. But I did mention Kyler just a second ago, and I just want to say he is not worth that money.
No.
He is not worth
Well,
that
Not
money.
even close.
I mean, Cliff Kingsbury's about to leave.
Yeah,
I think without a doubt he's done.
yeah, the clock is ticked.
He showed that even with the air raid, it doesn't work in the NFL the way you think it does. You do, and I think the Cardinals are the greatest example that you still need a decent running back to win.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter how good your quarterback is. If you don't at least have a mediocre wide or running back, you're not going to win many games in the NFL because every team can just sit back and wait for you to try to scramble out of the pocket or chuck the ball down the field.
So are
Have
we
you
just
ever-
totally dissing James Conner then?
I don't think James Conner he's not bad, but even in Pittsburgh, there's a reason why Pittsburgh let him walk.
Yeah, that is true because he had a lot of great years there, but like, I don't know, like he's just not one of those running backs.
He's
Like,
serviceable.
he's serviceable, but
he's definitely a great. Like I would want him on the Eagles as a second string.
yeah, he's a
Like,
second string guy. But
Yeah,
like, when you say
no.
serviceable, I think of guys like Miles Sanders.
No, I'm talking about serviceable in the fact that like they're a great setup to your starter,
Mhm.
and if your starting running back gets hurt, they can give you some yards.
Yeah,
But I don't see James Conner ever being the guy that Pittsburgh thought he was going to be.
no, I don't think he's starter caliber at all.
Like,
So
look at what Najee Harris is doing. Conner was never even close to that.
oh no. Mm-mm.
He did have 15 rushing touchdowns last year.
Yes, Yeah, no, I'm not. Again, he was a good rusher, but the thing is, he's not the guy that Arizona needs.
So I do agree that James Conner probably isn't your lead down back. However, there is something to be said about the fact that he did have 15 rushing touchdowns, that he's run also, the Cardinals' offensive line is also, compared to the Giants, horrible. Yeah. The fact that he's able to get even close to 4 yards per carry last year is amazing.
Yeah.
And the fact is he does work with an air raid, and I don't think Cliff Kingsbury understands how to use NFL running backs.
Yeah.
No. Have you ever used his playbook in Madden?
It's horrible.
I lost every single game.
Horrible.
I lost every single game.
No, I'm telling you,
it's the worst. It's the most one-dimensional play. You can't do anything with it.
The Bengals is ironically the best because Zach Taylor isn't a great coach, but like there you have like a amazing play.
But here's the thing: Taylor understands that you need to actually run the ball occasionally.
He fits
once
that
in a while.
Really well.
Yeah. But that's it. Okay, so maybe I'll take you back a little bit. That Connor is not the worst running back. My point still stands. You need to run the ball once in a while, or at least set it up, and that's like RPOs. The Eagles going back to them. Great example. They don't run the ball all the time. But they at least understand that you have to at least like set up your passing by running the ball.
Yeah, and they have a huge threat in the run game. So what you're saying with the RPO, it's you have to respect that. Like I think like to twist your words a little bit, like maybe it's not necessarily just the running back or like his fault, but like you need to have a solidified run game in general. Like we see the Eagles probably have the best run game in football overall. It's up for debate, but they're unquestionably in top 5. You see a lot of the teams up at the top of the NFL.
RPO.
They have great run games, and they can use it really well.
Even the Chiefs,
I think the exception is probably Buffalo. Doesn't have as great of a
no.
Yeah, like the Eagles, they don't run like a lot of like strict run plays. It's just a lot of RPO. And they see the hole, and then they'll hand the ball off.
And even with Buffalo, like it may not be great as a whole, but Allen is such a threat at running, and like you can't just sleep on Singletary. You can't just leave him on.
I think what teams have learned to do when they don't have great running games, when it comes to a team like Buffalo, when it came to Kansas City before this year, you have to have great quarterbacks to make teams be afraid of your run game.
Yeah.
That they know, hey, if we just drop back in coverage, guess what? They're going to hand off the ball and gain 10 yards each time. Mm-hmm. It makes you respect the fact that there could be a running play and you have to be ready for it at all times. Mm-hmm. And then, because again, if you drop a guy back 30 yards to cover Tyreek Hill when he was on the Chiefs, they're just going to do a simple handoff or have your quarterback like Mahomes run. Because Mahomes is very athletic as well.
Yes.
Same thing with Josh Allen. They're both very athletic. I don't understand why they don't do this with Kyler Murray. I get that their offensive line in Arizona isn't nearly as good as it is in Kansas City or Buffalo.
Yeah.
But you have a quarterback that is more athletic than both of these guys. Use it. Don't run him like 30 times a game like the Eagles did with Hurts, because eventually your quarterback's going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. But you can make defenses sort of creep up a little bit more, so then you have those deeper passes. I don't think that Arizona does that. And I think part of that is because, like you guys are saying with Kingsbury's offense, it's just simple college air raid, which is fine when you're playing in the Big 12 and all of your quarterbacks absolutely suck.
And the defenses are not really
no.
good.
I mean, when you're playing Kansas every single season, no, it's going to work very well in your favor. However, when you get to the NFL and you're playing against defensive coordinators who have coached in the NFL for years, some of them were head coaches and had one of the best defenses ever, it's a lot harder to do that. Mm-hmm. And you've got to do something more simplistic than have Kyler Murray throw the ball 40 times and then do simple handoffs to Connor for like 3 yards a carry.
Yeah, and like you can't throw the ball with Murray 40 times when you have a porous O-line like they have. Like what I've learned from the Eagles growing up, because we have pretty much always had a good O-line. Like the years that we've sucked, we can attribute that to offensive lines.
No, it was before 2012, so that was before they brought in Lane and like Kelsey's like first year.
Yeah,
and that
Shout out to Chip Kelly for actually drafting these.
I know, linemen. That's what I was going to say. Like a lot of building O-line is drafting, coaching, and weight training. Yeah. Like that's all of it, and like having a guy like Jeff Stoutland with the Eagles is just exceptional for us. And like if the Cardinals had their Jeff Stoutland, like that could be really scary surrounding Kyler with a brick wall.
There's good coaching. There's a reason that Tom Brady lasted until he's 45.
Exactly.
It's not just because that he did these ridiculous what?
Pause.
Oh, come on. No. I'm ignoring that for a second. Putting it to that. It's not because he did all these weird diets his entire career. It's not because that he just did simple passing routes for 5 or 6 yards. It's because that his offensive line in New England were always top tier. Mm-hmm. And again, they didn't necessarily have a great running game, but you had to respect the fact that Tom Brady was an above average reader of defenses, that you knew that you were going to eventually have to deal with the run.
Exactly.
And the fact that he was always one of the least sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. Mm-hmm. So his body is probably so much better than anyone else. You look what happened to Peyton Manning at the end of his career. When the Broncos' offensive line went down, he was getting hit. He didn't look the same after 2013 to the end of his career in 2015.
Exactly.
And that was a steep climb, mostly because the Colts' offensive line, as great as it was when they won, it wasn't always that great. Mm-hmm. New England never had that problem. So you need a good... It's not talked about. The trenches are not talked enough in the NFL. Defensive lines have been talked about a little bit more because you've had these ridiculous players like T.J. Watt and J.J. Watt, and now the Bosa brothers.
You also have stats on the defensive line.
Exactly.
You see stacks. Yeah. What, you don't see... There's no stats that on the offensive line. It's, do you make your block and make sure that your running back gains enough yards to look serviceable? Yeah. And make sure that your quarterback doesn't get hurt. That's it.
What is the biggest reason why the Bengals didn't win the Super Bowl?
I mean,
they got sacked. Burrow got sacked 7 times.
You want to put it down to one play too? The 4th and 2 when Donald broke through your line.
And he was who was the receiver that was wide open?
It was Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Chase was wide open. Yeah. Burrow's given 1.5 more seconds.
Literally a half more seconds.
That's a touchdown. Game's over. Yeah. You need a good offensive line. The Bengals have improved a little bit more, but I'm still very concerned when you have to go against pass rush like the Bills.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. And even the Titans have struggled a lot this year. I get it. They don't have a good quarterback anymore. Malik Willis is not that guy, if they even make the playoffs. However, their defense is what's carried them to this point. Mm-hmm. You need a good offensive line to stop them, and I just don't see the Bengals doing that at this point.
Yeah, agreed.
Here's the other issue with the Cardinals. I was looking at their wide receivers. So you obviously have DeAndre Hopkins, who's amazing. Their other receivers, Marquise Hollywood Brown, who's not terrible, but he's never had great hands. And then from there, it's Robbie Anderson and A.J. Brown.
And Rondell Moore.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
that's a lot of weapon. It's not
but great. But here's the thing. A.J. Brown, he's definitely, at this point, he's out of his prime. Completely.
Wait, you're talking about Marquise Brown, not AJ, right?
No, AJ Brown, or AJ Green, sorry. AJ Green's on them.
Yeah, okay.
No, yeah, AJ Green is on, I combined names there. Yeah, AJ Green, who's no longer, he's pretty much at this point, gets him 1 or 2, he got 1 or 2 catches a game, and that's it. And then Robbie Anderson, who honestly is more of a cancer than anything, considering every team he goes to ends up, understandably releasing him or trading him for his part. He's just awful. He's just toxic.
Yeah. And I really want to talk about the Niners. I mean, not the Niners, the Broncos.
Yes.
And the Rams game.
Disaster.
Merry fucking Christmas.
Yeah, I watched.
It was a better game than we thought, because the Rams played well. Oh my gosh, I can't watch Denver.
Baker Mayfield put 51 points.
Yeah, he looked
on
really
Russell
impressive.
Wilson.
Ironically, he did.
I love Baker Mayfield. I'm so happy.
Yeah, I'm happy for him
too. We know what he is.
Yeah.
Well, he's. Look, this is what I've been saying, and this is what I said last episode. I'm going to keep saying it. If you put him in the right system, he'll do okay.
Yeah.
I don't think he's that good of a quarterback anymore. I tried defending him, and the moment that he went to Carolina and everything collapsed. It's not 100% his fault.
It's not.
But also, he's just not the quarterback that everyone thought he was going to be. However, Nathaniel Hackett finally being fired. Oh, I have two points. First of all, thank you, Denver, for realizing that as great as your defense can be in a certain game, the moment that they get blown out and your offense can't do anything, your coach will probably go, why has Josh McDaniels not been fired yet, too?
I don't know, and it's could you argue that McDaniels has done a worse job?
Yeah.
I think you can.
He lost to Jeff Saturday.
He lost to Saturday. And he was given much better weapons.
Way better.
Than Denver had. Denver was given a quarterback that is a little bit outside of his... I think Russell will improve next year dramatically compared to this year.
Again, I think this is going to be the theme of the show is the offensive line.
Yeah.
Look at who he had in Seattle versus Denver.
It's not as good. However...
The Rams have a shitty line, though.
They're
so
not good. And here's the other thing. If you have struggled this much in one season and a completely different new coaching, I'm going to say it's not your fault.
Yeah.
Like, he's not that good anymore. I think Russell Wilson was carried a lot. Like, he was he won a Super Bowl. I'm not knocking him at all. He was given a great
for 5 years.
But also, I think that when you give him the opportunity with coaches that know what they're doing, he's going to look a lot better than he did this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Josh McDaniels was given Derek Carr, who is a Pro Bowler. I understand that he's not as great as everyone thought he was going to be. Still a Pro Bowler. Devontae Adams, who's one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. A great defense that helped them get to the playoffs last year. And he's gone 6-9, and the Raiders are missing the play. Like, what is going on with this team?
And they've all the blown leads. Like, you touched on the blown leads last week. Like, it's just it's exceptional. Like, how close they've been to winning a bunch of games, and like that's when you are losing games that you should win.
Yeah,
it goes back to coaching. Like almost every single time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The coaching has been. They are lucky they're at 6 wins, because if it wasn't for that New England play, they only have 5.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
So this might be the other reason he's not getting fired. I was looking at CBS's Instagram page. They have a long shot to make the playoffs. Basically, everything has to go right for them to win.
What, every team has to lose out, right?
Yeah, pretty much. However, I think it's because they still have that slim of a chance that McDaniels had. If he had as bad as a year that what's the hack?
Nathaniel Hackett.
If he had as bad of a year as Hackett did, he'd be fired. But because because there's a threshold in the NFL. In your first year, I think you're allowed basically 6 to 8 wins. If you're within that threshold and you don't make the playoffs your first year, but you get 6 to 8 wins, you have a little bit of a leash.
So wait,
yeah, and if you had like 5 or 4 context comes into play.
And that's what happened with Hackett, was that he had 4 wins, but there were 4 terrible wins.
Yeah.
Like, you look at, like, the Lions last year with Campbell when they were, like, barely winning.
Yeah.
But you could see improvement throughout everything.
Exactly. Like, you would not...
I barely watched the 4 o'clock games anyway because there's, like, 3 of them. But when I did watch them, I saw the Broncos get worse week by week.
Yeah.
And that's when you realize, like, this guy is not cut for it. Same for the Jaguars last year. That's why Urban Meyer got fired.
Urban Meyer should have gotten fired after week 4.
Well, yes, obviously. But
it took him groping a woman at the bar for him to get fired.
That's not why he got fired. It was the story about him kicking the kicker.
Oh my God!
That's what got him fired.
Yeah. Here's what I noticed about Urban Meyer immediately. He did not look NFL ready.
No.
The Jaguars had out immediately.
Mm-hmm.
They should have taken it.
Yeah.
Look, is it a final offense what he did? You could argue that. However, the Jaguars were not playing well at that point. It was clear that Trevor Lawrence was not improving at all as a quarterback. Mm-hmm. You had an out.
Yeah.
There's a reason why franchises like the Jaguars, like what Denver has unfortunately turned into after winning that Super Bowl, the struggle, because they don't understand when to take outs with their coaches. Jacksonville's turned around because they hired an actual NFL coach in Doug Peterson, who I predicted would be NFL Coach of the Year. I think he's going to at this point. Nick Sirianni was winning it for a while, but I think at this point, if Jacksonville makes the playoffs, wins the division, it's really hard to argue that
debatable, though, just because of what Dan Campbell's done as well.
Yeah.
But the Lions could miss the playoffs, though. Right now, Jacksonville's tied with first in the AFC South.
Yeah.
And it's a bad AFC South, I understand that. But from where Jacksonville was last year to now...
Also considering...
Or, like, even, week 3 or 4 to now, like,
considering where the Titans were. Like, the Titans had it. And even though the Titans are now, like, behind the Jaguars, that's because the Jaguars actually started playing really good football.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is. Like, you could say, like, I'll just go a little bit right. You could say, like, the NFC and the AFC South are trash and whatnot. But there's a reason why the Buccaneers still have it.
Yeah.
And the Titans don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because the Jaguars came in and actually, like, competed. No one in the NFC South was even close. At least not after, like, week 13.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. None of those teams that you listed, though, are doing worse than the Denver Broncos. I think they are one of the worst teams ever in the NFL. Like, your black cat came down as soon as we started talking about the Denver Broncos, and I think that should be their mascot. That's their whole season. They literally... Terrible. Russell Wilson.
So bad.
Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. If you said 2 years ago they would all be on the same team, you'd be like, fuck, they're going to the playoffs, right?
At least...
But none of them are producing.
No.
And
But
Jerry,
this is the fact that they had a terrible offensive call the entire season. And up until this point of the season, their defense was playing very, very well. And I mentioned this. It took them getting blown out by the Rams for them to realize that you can't always have a great defense and need to rely on your offense at least a little bit. And when you can't do that, you're not going to win any of them.
I'm just going to say this.
Bad.
So there are reports that the next coach of the Broncos could very well be Sean Payton.
Oh.
Now, who has heard this story before? A veteran quarterback who just left their one team, coming to another one in the Saints, having a stacked defense and having a good offense.
they got to bring a lot of ice cream there.
Well, I'm just saying this though. The last time that Sean Payton had a team like this was when Breeze went from the Chargers to the Saints. A couple years later, they won the Super Bowl. I'm not saying the Broncos are there yet. But if Sean Payton does actually come to Denver, you have to at least give them a little better of a chance next year. And if he stays there for 3 or 4 years, I think they're contending for a Super Bowl.
I think so too. And I don't like Sean Payton at all, personality-wise. I think he's one of the NFL scumbags. I think that he is
after the 2009
pretty much,
literally, yeah.
And I know that a lot more.
But he kept the Saints in it every year.
Yeah, and he's notoriously known for being an a-hole a little bit, and I think he's the epitome of.
But he's won.
No, 100%.
That's
you
the
can't
thing.
deny that
No.
he's one of the best coaches.
And plus, when
throughout
you
his
get
entire
to
tenure there.
Here's the thing: you can be an asshole in the NFL
And win.
if you're good and you're not a college coach. Because Chip Kelly was like that, and so was Urban Meyer. But they did it in a way that they demean players.
Yeah, and look at how short the leash was with Chip Kelly. He had 2 10-win seasons, and the minute they dropped under 500, he was out.
But here's the thing: Sean Payton, he understands the NFL, and he gets the best from his players.
Yeah, the Saints were not firing him. He
No.
left. Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the same thing. And again, this is only if he wants to come. This is just speculation. But he was, I forget who he was talking to, but he was talking to another coach.
Miami, right?
He was talking to, no, not a team, but he was talking to a coach to come in.
For coordinator?
I think it was defensive coordinator.
I thought Miami was looking at him.
Maybe.
Before they hired McDaniel.
Because Miami's turnaround, obviously with Tua being hurt and the fact that they fell off, hasn't looked great.
Yeah.
But their offense looks so much better this year, and it's just taking from what they learned in San Francisco, moving it to another team. Obviously, you need Tua to stay healthy in order to do that, and that just hasn't happened. I am very worried about where Tua's career is going after his 3rd concussion in one season.
100%, yeah.
But it also shows that maybe you can just draft another quarterback. Obviously, Tua was a top 5 draft pick.
Yeah.
But if Miami starts slipping a little bit or tries to trade a pick, I don't know. All I'm saying is the fact that you can find these other coaches the same way that LaFleur was found out of McVay's system. You can find these other system coaches as well. You don't necessarily have to go with a veteran coach, although Sean Payton is very eye-popping for Denver fans who just went through one of those coaches that was supposed to be these new young shot, and it just did not work for them at all. And the fact that it was on Christmas Day in LA, this was supposed to be, we talked about this last week, how this game could have been seen by the NFL as a key game for them.
The NFL saw it as a cash cow. That's why they put it in one of the 3 games. They thought it was going to be a playoff game, basically a playoff game, a chance for either of these teams to be, if
maybe
not already clinching.
Right, which again, I would have last week. I didn't
be
think,
this is going to be a playoff clinching game, if not like you said, a Super Bowl game.
Yeah, but it definitely did not turn out this way. And
even close.
The Denver has now fallen as one of the teams that could at least compete a little bit to sort of be where they were in the mid to late 2000s of this floundering team that the Raiders sometimes beat.
Yeah.
But because they can.
So quickly, before we wrap up with the NFL, I just want to mention that you last week, Aiden, said that the Packers have a chance to go into the playoffs, and I dismissed it right away, but they played really well last week.
I guess we can take a page out of your book. You could never discount the bad man. I guess we can take it out of your head.
What have I been saying, since the creation of the show?
It's weird, though, because it was so easy to.
Yeah.
The Packers looked horrible the majority of the season. And now when they actually need to start winning games, Aaron Rodgers is coming in clutch. Look, Tua getting hurt completely shifted the game.
Did you see those stats? before and after that play on the concussion, it definitely seemed like he got a concussion, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But the Packers still, even with that, the offense still looked 1,000 times better.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Aaron Rodgers has said to his receivers, and I am not an Aaron Rodgers fan at all, by the way. I think he is egotistical and a narcissist.
100%.
And he hates everyone in his locker room, especially his wide receivers. But whatever he said the last 5 weeks had made them all look like they would have been, if they had played like that the entire year, they would have been Pro Bowlers.
Dotson's improvement over the last 5 weeks has been amazing.
Oh my gosh.
He has gone from looking like a rookie that's going to be out of the league within 2 seasons to being a future Devontae Adams.
Same with Lazard, though. I didn't think Lazard was going to be that. I know he's been in the league, but I did not think I thought Lazard was going to end up being like on another team, struggling for like a third or fourth
sort of
wide
like
receiver.
MVS with the
Yeah.
Chiefs,
But he all of a sudden he's been
he's
balling.
Yeah, I know, and like I completely agree with you, Aiden. Like Watson's progression throughout this year. Like thinking back to week 1 when he drops the touchdown against Minnesota,
literally first pass of his entire career.
And you're like, they gave up Adams for him.
Yeah.
And obviously it wasn't direct.
No, but it felt. We all knew that's what. So
Packers fans definitely thought that way.
Yeah,
Watson's looked
really
great.
good.
Watson's looked great. Lazard's looks really good. The combination of Dillard and who's the other, or Dylan and who's the other running back?
Jones.
Yeah, Dylan and Jones. That combination has completely opened up the Packers running game since we haven't seen since when James Starks was running back there. This Packers team, I don't think they'll make a deep playoff run, but they could upset a team in the wild card round for sure.
And honestly, just making the playoffs is a plus for them, I think.
And
especially where the season was.
Here's what they're going to have to do, though. They're going to have to beat Minnesota. And I understand that it's obviously not like week 1 when they lost to Minnesota, but Minnesota's eyeing that 1 seed still.
Yeah.
They're going to be this is going to be a game to watch for sure, because the Packers know their season's on the line. Minnesota is still playing for that 1 seed, and if not the 1 seed, they're still playing for the 2 seed.
Where's the game at this week?
It's at
Lambeau.
Yeah.
It's going to give the Packers good odds.
Yeah, I would too. It's going to be tough for Minnesota.
It's going to be very tough for Minnesota, but they also know the 49ers are right on their tails too.
Yeah.
So all these 3 teams have something to play for still.
Yeah, I was saying, like, Vikings and Packers both have a fire under their ass right now. Like, they're playing for their lives, pretty much. I mean,
Vikings
not as much
Minnesota,
but like, at the same time.
You would much rather be playing at your home crowd against San Francisco than having to travel to Levi Stadium to play that. Which, if the Vikings win their game and are the 3 seed, the 49ers win as the 2 seed, that game would be in Levi Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings Stadium is one of the loudest to play in.
Yeah.
You want your fans there for a playoff. You've got to be thinking that in your back of your mind when you're playing this game on Sunday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to mention, Aaron Rodgers still has a broken thumb on his throwing hand.
Does he? I forgot about that.
He's
He's a great quarterback.
He's a great. What's so weird about Aaron Rodgers is that you can give him some of the worst weapons possible, and I mean, watching the beginning of this year was not good. It's Tom Brady-esque, but even a little bit more because Aaron Rodgers does it at MVP level twice and puts up these amazing. Yes,
Thank you.
Aaron Rodgers. I never thought I'd be saying that, but Aaron Rodgers has proven to me this year that you can give him these horrible weapons and eventually turn them into what looks like Pro Bowlers.
Yeah,
Watson looks like a Pro Bowler.
I completely agree. And like we said that with Brady throughout his whole career.
Yeah.
Like he's taken the white Walmart guys from Bill Belichick took a cashier from Popeyes and played wide receiver. Like that's been the running joke for a long time. And
but
Rodgers is kind of the same way. Like
that's turning into it. I will say that the Packers gave it. Watson was a 3rd round draft pick.
Yeah.
Julian Edelman was a quarterback out of Kent State.
Yeah.
That was formed into a what looks like a Hall of Fame quarterback.
And Chris Hogan was a lacrosse player at Penn State that turned into a number 2.
So I don't think Aaron Rodgers can do that. I will say that Aaron Rodgers has turned the season around when I did not think it was possible, and I'll totally give him props for that.
This is real growth. I'm like really proud of this.
I'm
so
I've been around it. Like, I like Rodgers as a player, but like you have made me hate him. Like,
why? Literally, why?
I just don't think he's as good as you make him.
No,
he's the most accurate quarterback. Look at his touchdown to interception ratio. Yeah, it dropped a hell of a lot.
No,
he is 100%.
The most accurate
Best deep ball ever.
Yeah, I could agree with that, but I don't think most accurate.
Most talented to ever come in this league.
No.
Yes.
If he was so talented, why did he fall to 22nd in the draft?
I don't care. Like, look at him. He's like 39. He's 39.
Hang on.
The thing
He's
is,
still
like,
playing.
I can see what you're saying, like, but at the same time, talent doesn't equal wins in the NFL.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
That's why I care.
He's also
Talent around him
okay.
also
I don't want
doesn't
to
win.
keep going back to this Aaron Rodgers argument. How many Super Bowls has he won? How many great teams?
Do you really want to go there? Do you really want to go there? Yeah.
Because he was given in 2011.
This
He
is
was
my
given.
only knock on it.
He was given a much better team in 2011. That team went 50-1 and then lost to the Giants. I understand the Giants went on to win the Super Bowl that year and had one of those amazing Giants runs that they seem to go on every time they make the postseason.
Every 4 years.
Yeah,
10 years.
but they were still favored by so much.
And
You
they
know
had
what?
it at home.
And they had it at home.
Come on.
You know
And they
what?
still lost.
You know what? I'm going to pick from the lowest hanging fruit right now.
Do it.
How many times have the Packers been accused of cheating?
None.
Oh.
Zero.
I'm just saying this. I'm a Bears sympathizer. I wanted them to win the NFC Championship game in 2010, and it did not happen.
Rodgers didn't even win that game.
No,
that was
that was
Rodgers' game.
Rodgers'
He
game.
was getting a 6
Yeah, I mean, it was 17
And Caleb Henry coming in because Jay Cutler got hurt.
Yeah.
That's what won them that game.
Yeah.
Do not even give me that.
No, I'm just saying
Rodgers?
though, like here's the thing. I've never liked Rodgers since that.
Rodgers would be the most.
And-
No, Rodgers is a great regular season quarterback
Oh,
who has
get-
won one Super Bowl.
God. You can't call him a regular season quarterback. That's like saying James Harden's a good playoff performer, but we'll
Sorry, my sweatshirt has to come off for the Harden talk.
I think
Alright.
it's time to change this to some
Yeah,
basketball,
it
Jack.
is. It very much is.
So, Jack,
Slide,
we
slide,
want
I will
slide.
let you open it up. I will let you open the floor.
we want a
Please.
monologue.
Alright, so where do
Just
I
so you
start?
know, real quick.
Oh, cool. You got your phone out. I got this. I got this.
Okay.
So, James
Very
Harden,
fair.
during the hottest stretch of the Sixers season, talked about.
No, he
floated the idea. He floated the idea, and someone snitched. No. He floated the idea, and someone snitched on him.
Let me say. So during the 6 or 7 game win streak, which Jack is referring to as the hottest part of the Sixers season, which it is definitely.
We just lost.
Yeah, we
So it
also
is what it is.
Lost to the Wizards.
But it was an away game. It was the second game on
Yeah.
the road after being in Madison Square Garden on Christmas. It's a whatever.
And he can't lose to the Wizards.
It's whatever.
It's
Okay,
not
it's
whatever,
fine.
but
It's
it's
fine.
not
Regardless.
So before the Christmas Day game, there's a report. I want to put that in emphasis. A report that Harden's camp is discussing a possible return to Houston if a deal is not worked out with the Sixers in the summer,
Yes.
which you have refused to acknowledge. I rest my case.
No,
I agree.
Here's how many times has Harden done this in his career?
No, he's not doing the same thing. He's not. I promise you,
Also,
he's
I
not.
can't. Harden. We said Harden's camp. This wasn't directly from Harden.
No, let's
How many
make
times
this
has this
straight.
come from Harden's camp?
I understand.
Wants to go to Brooklyn. Harden's camp wants to go to Contender from Brooklyn. How
no.
many times has this been done in Harden's career?
But Houston's not a contender, and they won't be a contender with Harden.
Yeah, exactly.
But-
He doesn't want to win.
Wait,
It's bullshit.
Wait. What I'm trying to say is this report is nothing new. We knew that if the Sixers don't get past the second round, James Harden will not be a 76er next year. It won't happen. Glenn Rivers will not be our head coach next year. Daryl Morey will not be our GM next year. And it is extremely possible Joel Embiid will not be.
No,
here
so
next
I
year.
disagree with you. I think Morey's going to stay because he has brought talent. The issue isn't the GM.
He didn't bring talent.
Yeah.
PJ
He brought PJ.
Really?
He has more shoes than career points.
If we did not have Daryl Morey, Harden would not have come to the Sixers.
I disagree with that.
I agree. I do agree with that. However, looking back, was Harden the best deal you could have gotten? Because Tyrese Halliburton is absolutely balling.
No,
Yep.
but I mean, for what we gave up, I feel like it's fine. I like Harden, and I think Maxey coming back is going to help dramatically.
Okay.
My issue
I agree.
my issue is with Sam Cassell still being our bench coach.
Yes.
It's
Thank
about
you.
time that Cassell finally gets a shot with the Sixers
God, thank you
organization.
so much.
Glenn Rivers needs to go.
Sucks.
I was watching the game against the against the Knicks, and our offense looked flat.
Yeah.
I've never seen that in an NBA game. The rotation was terrible.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious what's happening every
And
time.
it's predictable.
Thank God we had George Niang, who can actually shoot occasionally off the bench.
Yeah.
Keyword occasionally.
Occasionally. That's
Keyword.
right. And that's the issue. But the issue is, if we were just able to get the ball inside, like, it's so obvious. We either shoot threes or give it to Embiid down low. That's our whole game plan. There's no movement outside the perimeter or even inside.
Yeah.
We need to do something better. And I know you want to talk about James Harden, but without a good coach, he will leave regardless.
Yeah. But I will say, now that you shifted my attention over to Daryl Morey, he was in charge of the team that had one of the most epic playoff collapses, one of the most epic game collapses.
That was Glenn Rivers.
Okay,
so that was
no.
Oh,
It was
you mean on the Rockets?
yes,
Yeah. Oh.
and then he brought James.
Got hurt though.
He brought James Harden, and then he brought the fellow chokers, Daniel House
No.
and PJ Tucker. The whole organization,
PJ Tucker's
it's tainted.
the best
It's
player.
tainted. It's tainted.
I
He's
like PJ
averaging
Tucker.
1.6
I
points.
love PJ
I didn't like him.
What does he do? What does he do?
He brings so much energy, dude. Every single time he plays defense like a pit bull. He's a pit bull out there.
He's Al Horford 2.0.
I don't get it.
He's Al Horford 2.0. No, that is a terrible.
Watch what he does. He stands in the corner the same way Al Horford does.
no.
He can shoot a little bit
Because
better.
that's what he has to do.
Space.
He's there to play defense and rebound and hustle.
Wait, his defense. Wait.
No, you
Let's
have
talk
to-
about his defense in this game. What? This defense.
There was a
Randall
mismatch.
cooked him. Randall cooked him.
There was a bad
Then
mismatch.
why was he on him if he can't even cover him?
No, that's
That's
Rivers
coaching, in
though.
my opinion.
But
Like,
that's
that's coaching,
Okay,
but like
then
I agree
yes,
with
but
you.
every time that I saw him covering someone else, he couldn't cover RJ Barrett. He's not athletic enough to cover all these other guys either. And when you have to play a team like the Nets or the Cavs in the playoffs,
Don't be
who are
fighting against
very
the Nets.
I think he'd be better for us because, like, I think that when it comes down to it, we rebound as a team pretty well, and like Tucker adds to that. I think like he's a man, like he's a guy who boxes out. Like he doesn't just jump for rebounds, which is what I personally love.
Then why were the Knicks getting so many offensive rebounds in that game?
No, we
It was just
did not
lucky.
rebound well.
Yeah,
at
no,
all.
it was
And,
trash
I think it was
rebounds.
an effort thing that game. Like when you watch Embiid too, like Embiid's obviously a phenomenal rebounder. He averages like 11 rebounds.
They were
every
also,
single year.
if you watch
But effort-wise, Embiid took some plays off in that game, and then he turned it around, though, in the second half. He did not take plays off.
if you watch the Knicks rebounding though, they had like 2 or 3 guys at every shot.
Yeah.
Like
We don't do that.
No. And again, I think it's just, you can blame the players all you want. You can talk about this Harden thing. At the end of the day, the Sixers' biggest fault is Glenn Rivers.
Yep.
Agreed.
But I want to read some stats. PJ Tucker, he's very charitable. He gives his stats away to other players. 3.5 points per game, 4.4 rebounds, and 0.9 assists.
How many turnovers?
Let's see. Let me open that advanced tab. Turnovers. He averages 0.9. So,
yeah, so he's
okay, but that's a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. That don't
he's
cut it.
also a power forward. So
But
as long as he's not like getting like 2 or 3 a game,
So-
I don't really care.
But he's a starter and he averages 3.5 points.
But he's not a shooter anymore. Like the thing is, and this was the thing with Al Horford when we brought him in, was that it wasn't a good fit. I think that having him on the floor isn't a bad fit compared to having Al Horford on the court, because Al Horford and Embiid play the same way. Tucker and Embiid don't play the same way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think he's a better fit.
I'm still trying to figure out what he does, though.
I don't know either. I feel like that he would be great off the bench, and maybe
Don't you guys remember the
Listen,
Miami
I just
game,
want to
though?
say something
Or
though
Miami
to you real
series?
quick. Like you are bringing up like the points and everything. Like, dude, he won a championship in Milwaukee and was a key piece to that championship run. And I want you to take a guess how many points he averaged.
No, he was a really good scorer in Milwaukee, wasn't it? Like, no.
Let me pull up.
It's
this
less
lineup.
than it was now.
Oh my God, really?
2.6 points per game with Milwaukee. Like he
Jesus.
does.
Okay.
I mean, he makes winning plays that don't go up in the stat sheet. And I'm looking at the total.
Yeah, but how many
rebounds.
rebounds did he get in that?
2.8
Rebounds?
which actually is very surprising to me. But like, I'm telling you, he moves people.
He does.
This
but,
guy will not.
he's
get the offensive
too.
rebound.
I feel like at this point in his career, he's aged. So even in the 2 years since then,
Yeah.
he just has aged so much.
No.
When I was watching him in the Knicks game,
Yeah.
he just if you need him to be that key defensive guy, he's not that anymore.
Yeah.
He could be in short spurts. Like, I'm fine with him off the bench. Totally fine with that. But as a starter, he just couldn't keep it. And it was the Knicks.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what happens if you have to play a deep team. Like I said, the Cavs or Nets. Or that's not even mentioning the Celtics or Bucks, who played a great game against each other. I mean, it wasn't the best game of the night. I clearly went to the Nuggets and
holy moly.
Suns, which was fantastic, and it showed that I think the Nuggets are starting to take that next step
Legit.
to be just that team that collapses in the playoffs or can't get past the second round, which
That sounds familiar.
Exactly, I was going to say, Sixers fans, that sounds familiar. But it feels like the Nuggets are starting to take that step. I don't think the Sixers are making it past the second round.
If Maxey comes back and plays better, I think
no.
we've got a chance.
Because I was watching the Cavs game last night, too. Who's going to guard Darius Garland from the Sixers?
I think Maxey could.
No.
I think he can.
No.
Kyrie couldn't even guard him. Kyrie's a much better defender.
Kyrie's a great defender.
And he was having trouble with Darius Garland. Darius Garland put up an easy 43. And that was a night where the Cavs struggled a lot.
Yeah.
And he single-handedly made that game competitive in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Okay, let's say this. Okay, fine. Darius Garland gets contained by Tyrese Maxey. Who's going to guard Donovan Mitchell?
Oh, I forgot. Yeah.
You're going to have to defend them. I mean, let's be real. It's no secret. Like, you're going to have to defend every team as a team.
That's what I'm saying. The Sixers can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm confident in the top four teams being able to guard each other. I think those four teams make it to the Eastern Conference semifinal and are super competitive against each other. I don't think it's a walkthrough for any of those teams.
No, it definitely
is. I think the Sixers are going to be a little bit of a walkthrough team, honestly.
Yeah.
I see, this is why I disagree, though, is like, we know in the NBA that offense wins championships. I don't believe we have the best backcourt by any means, but I think our backcourt of Harden and Maxey is going to be stellar, and like especially in the playoffs.
You also have to
because
wait
we
to see
saw
what
last
year
year,
comes back.
Maxey elevates.
Does Harden elevate?
He can't.
He's the same.
And again,
he's stagnant.
Again, though, this
he's
goes
staying in
back to
the
coaching.
and you're going to be playing against a very hungry Darius Garland, who is now going to be showing people, hey, guess what? You might not be paying attention to me because I play for Cleveland, but watch me in the playoffs now that I'm on the big stage. Hang on, Donovan Mitchell's also going to be very, very hungry as well. Saying, guess what? I left the West because it was very competitive and I wasn't the contract I wanted. Now I'm going to come to Cleveland out of all places, which, except for when LeBron was on them, is basically a basketball wasteland, and now is going to make them relevant without LeBron, which has never been done in Cleveland's history.
Yeah.
Okay, so one thing. You talk about the Sixers last year and how Harden was stagnant. You know who one of those defenders was on that Heat team that really caused issues for the Sixers offense? PJ Tucker! He was all over the court against the Sixers. He was one of the biggest reasons why we couldn't do anything on offense.
Yes, he was.
You I do remember that. But that's also because we run a terrible offense. You can literally throw out the worst defender on the Sixers defense, and he would look elite. Their offense is terrible. It's so terrible. Here's the offense.
I already explained it. Everyone around the perimeter and then Embiid inside and the couple of screens here and there.
Yeah, most of the picks that they ran were Harden. Harden is not even fast enough to run past Embiid's screens. He jogs past them and then passes it to a guy who's maybe wide open, maybe not, and hopes that they put up a lucky three.
Yeah, you
Here's
know
what I'll
why?
say.
Because the fat suit's on, because he's getting ready to go back to Houston.
I want to say this, too, though.
Those strip clubs better be ready. All right.
What Aiden was saying, or I'm sorry, what Caleb was saying about the Sixers' biggest weakness being Glenn Rivers, to me, that's 100% true. Like, I'll go back in time to 2016 and late 2015. The Cleveland Cavaliers were coming off losing the finals to Steph Curry the year before, and they started the year off pretty slow. And they hit Christmas Day, and they got blown out by 30 by the Warriors. And it looked extremely dire, and things were array there. They weren't down in the East standings. Like, they were still in the playoff hunt. They were probably 5 or 4 seed. But it wasn't the Cleveland that we had known the year before. It wasn't a LeBron James team that we had known. And they fired David Blatt in about January. And they bring in
Tyronn Lue.
Yes, their assistant coach Tyronn Lue is elevated to head coach.
Who, by the way, I doubted Tyronn Lue,
but he's been doing well in LA.
I thought that LeBron carried him, but considering the team, like I know that the Clippers are very good.
Yeah, and we
But
saw
that doesn't
they
necessarily
went to win a
transition.
championship. Like, they made changes, and that's what I'm seeing with this team is like we have talent. To me, we aren't far off talent-wise from any team in the East. We are right there with them, but we need to make structural changes. Like what we're saying with the offense is so predictable. It's an Embiid post-up, an Embiid catch at the elbow, or it's a pick and roll. Every single time, and when Embiid gets the ball inside, there's no movement on the perimeter. No one's cutting, no one's setting off-ball screens. Like, it's just super stagnant, and, Embiid just you pretty much are relying on Embiid to shoot
I think
50-60% from the field.
I
You're
agree.
relying on Harden to shoot that. You're relying on Maxey to shoot that. And it's not sustainable.
Yeah,
It's just not.
I think you're missing a part though. Like I agree. Like Embiid, he takes up a lot of the clock, but Harden does the same thing. They take turns taking up 19 seconds of the clock.
No, that's not what I'm saying though. Like I'm saying, if you want to get the ball to Embiid in the post and at the elbow, by all means. If you want to run a Harden pick and roll, do it. But there has to be more. You can't just have extra three guys standing.
Because Tobias Harris just sits in the corner.
And he's not that great of a three-point shooter. He's not good enough
But the thing is, he can't. I think he can be much better. And I don't think that it's Tobias not moving. Because I know he can.
Yeah.
He's able to.
He's just told to stand there.
Yeah.
He's told to stand there.
And that's why the bench players play so well when Harden and Embiid are out. Because they don't know how to play with them.
Like, Thibault, I've knocked Thibault a lot. Like, he's not a great shooter. And, but I guess
he shoots like this.
And it's like, dude, make him cut to the rim. He dunks, every time.
And the
he
thing
makes
is,
every layup.
Here's the other thing.
He shoots like this.
Cut and made him a slasher, then his three-point shooting would be better too.
Yeah.
Because then he has way more time and space where he can sit in the corner, and that defender actually has to make sure that he stays in front of him, because if he just stands there with his back turned to the basket and Thibault cuts, that's points every time.
Yeah. And think about this too, let's say you have Harden coming off, right, and he's driving at Thibault on a wing and D'Anthony Melton in the corner, right? Let's say you cut Thibault, right? He beats his man on a back cut. You bounce him the ball, layup, 2 points. Next time down the floor, you run the same set. Thibault cuts. Melton's guy moves in a little bit. Boom, Melton's open for just a half second more. It's amazing.
Melton's a very good shooter.
And it could be Tyrese Maxey, too, in that corner. That's what, we need this to open up. You can't just throw the ball to Thibault and have him shoot the three.
Just saying this.
You are going to miss 80% of those shots.
I don't even play basketball, and I just made a better offense than Glenn Rivers.
Yeah. I just think that structurally
Put me on the bench, coach.
We need a new voice at the head. We need a new.
I think it could happen
great
if the Sixers struggled. They did not look good in the first half against the Knicks. Sorry, Christmas Day. They lost to the Wizards, which I just found out about, that's not a good loss at all.
No, Embiid had 48, but yeah.
But still, this is what the Sixers do. Embiid has a great game, and then nobody else does anything.
You're a team.
Yeah. So if they keep losing games like this, or barely winning games, or collapsing like they did in the Lakers win, which started that 7-game win streak, which they should have not won that game at all.
No.
There will be a change before January if the Sixers actually want to compete
for January. You think within the next,
or before February at least, but middle of January.
They're not firing Doc.
I can't imagine if you keep struggling. And here's the other thing:
why did the Clippers keep him for so long? It's
exactly.
And it was the same thing with their offense. Literally, it was either alley-oops or just have Chris Paul run with the ball.
Yeah. It's one of the 8 wonders in the sports world why he gets recognition for his job. He's terrible.
He has won a lot of games.
That's it.
Yeah, because he had 14 different All-Stars.
Yeah, but you can say that the same about any coach as well. Look, is Tibbs a great coach? Think about who Tibbs has had when he coached. Mm-hmm. He had prime Derrick Rose.
Tibbs was a horrible coach.
No, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that Tibbs is always giving jobs. Why? Because he wins in the regular season. Yeah. Maybe not in the postseason. But if you can,
basketball is way too. I agree. Basketball is way too on regular season.
Well, because you're given. If you're given stars, you're going to be coached for a long time. If you learn how to coach stars, that's when it's not really talked about in the NBA. Being able to coach stars is not easy when you have 5 guys in the court and 2 of them are fighting with each other.
Yeah, we saw what happened with Steve Nash.
Yeah, well, Phil Jackson was one of the best coaches ever. Not because he always won a lot of games with All-Stars, but because he learned how to make these guys that always butted heads work together in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's a very hard thing for coaches to learn how to do. And it's a reason why there's very few great elite coaches in the NBA and why a lot of guys can stick around the NBA, because it's you can learn how to coach a star. It's why Steve Nash got fired, because he couldn't even learn how to win with Durant and Kyrie on the same team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you can't do that, then there's no point in having him a coach.
Yeah,
well,
and
like growing
back
Ben
to your
Simmons.
point too, like with Phil Jackson, and like obviously now we see everything that's come out about what the Chicago Bulls were going through, and like you are completely right. Like your leader is Phil Jackson, and he led you to 6 titles with a team that pretty much hated each other throughout every single part of it.
Well,
and then Kobe Shaq obviously had
the same thing. It was very hard, and I think that's the issue with Doc, is that as great as a coach as Doc is, learning how to leaning on the talent that you have to win regular season games, he doesn't know how to get guys to work together in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of, like we talked about, ISO ball. That's what he runs in the playoffs, and sometimes it works. When he was running the Celtics with Paul Pierce and Garnett and that team, ISO ball works. Yeah,
you also said Rondo is your point.
But that's what I'm saying. ISO ball works in that situation because you have 3 very, very talented guys.
Yeah.
He's never had even close to that talent. That's not knocking anyone that he's coached. He's coached Chris Paul. He's coached Harden at this point. Like, he's coached a lot of talented guys, but he doesn't know how to use them correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can't
There's
just
a reason
leave
why the
them-
Celtics only won 1 championship.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, that too. But
Ray Allen was on that team as well.
yeah, there's
so
a whole
that's-
thing. You have 4 great players playing together.
Mm-hmm.
You can use ISO ball because Ray Allen's going to make basically every shot that he attempts.
Yeah.
Pierce is one of the most athletic point guards to be able to find that space.
No, Rondo.
Or Rondo, sorry, Garnett
Pierce is
and Pierce
just
and
a
Garnett
baller.
Pierce and Garnett were just ballers.
2 of the best Celtics ever.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that team put together was easily going to win over any other team. And then they made it to the finals next year, though. Doc really hasn't ever made it back to the finals since then. Why? Because he hasn't had even close to the talent that he had with the Celtics.
Yep.
And that's, again, not knocking some of these guys he's coached, because he's coached talented team, but not anywhere close to what the Celtics in the late 2000s were.
Mm-hmm.
Also, when you go back to Phil Jackson, I don't know if any of you guys have seen the Knicks documentary, the 30 for 30 about the Knicks in the 60s. There's a reason why he was able to coach stars the way he was, and it was because of the guys that he was playing with on the Knicks. Because they all had very big, different personalities. And the coach, I forget, his first name was Red, was able to do the exact same thing, where he's able to bring all these personalities together and get them to win 2 championships in the 70s against other very talented teams.
Yeah.
And Phil realized that he could, and he understood how to do the same thing. I honestly think that you should have an undergrad as a sociology major if you're going to coach in the NBA, because you have to understand how people work together.
Yeah.
And it's different than any other sport. Football, you have 53 players. Baseball, you have 25, if not, but more though when it comes to guys in your minor league system who you have to bring up. Basketball, there are 12 to 15 guys that you are going to deal with day after day. And some of those guys are making a lot of money and have very big personalities. If you don't understand how to even work with one of those guys, much less 2, especially with the guys in the NBA now, who I think there's a lot of them who want to do a lot of outside of basketball as well, which I completely commend them for. But as a coach, you have to understand that. If you don't understand the way that the NBA works now, you're not going to stick around for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So before I wrap up, do you guys have anything else?
I mean,
the college football playoffs coming up.
those are coming up. Yeah, that is. Oh, yeah, we definitely should, because that's this weekend.
Yeah,
I am.
TCU, baby. Let's go. Let's go.
I'm rooting for them.
I want the underdogs so bad. I mean, they're probably not going to win, but
well, I don't.
They have a good chance, though. They definitely do.
They're playing Michigan, though.
Okay.
Michigan has had a great season, absolutely. Yes. However, there is weaknesses on that team that have been exposed consistently by lesser Big Ten opponents.
Yeah.
And Duggar is one of the most athletic quarterbacks that Michigan will ever face. There's, C.J. Stroud's a great quarterback. Absolutely. He's not that athletic.
No, yeah.
Duggar is just a freak athlete, and he has that mentality of, I might not be the biggest guy on the field, I might not have the best strength or any of that, but I'm just going to ball over you, and you're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's why he almost single-handedly won TCU that game over Kansas State in the Big 12 championship.
Which was a great game.
It was a great game, and it was mostly because of him.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. That Michigan-TCU game is going to be very, very close, and that's going to be a must-watch, I believe.
Yeah. Now,
getting onto the Georgia-Ohio State, I believe that's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
Initially I was like, that's going to be a good game. And now we're getting closer to the game, and I'm starting to realize how much better Georgia is than Ohio State.
Yeah. Georgia's just so much better than everyone else. They're turned into what Alabama
Right.
has been, and I don't want to say Alabama's totally slipped up completely because
I
they'll
don't think
definitely
they have.
bounce back. However, it feels like Georgia's built up that program in the SEC that it's going to be between Bama and Georgia every single year.
Yeah, and I don't think that there's a team in the playoff right now that can compete with Georgia.
No,
And as good as I think Michigan and TCU are.
Also, the fact that Kirby Smart is from Bama also is a great indicator of basically why Georgia is the way they are.
He's Saban's coaching tree too, right?
He was the defensive coordinator from Bama.
Okay.
From 2008 to 2015, which is right when.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so he was with Saban pretty much that entire run up until the college football playoff started.
So he pretty much modeled Bama to Georgia. Yeah.
Which you can do when you're in the SEC and know those guys because there's a lot of the same recruiting tree.
Yeah.
If you can build up a program like that, it's why Texas
Georgia
A&M
also has the historical outside of it as well.
kind of
In
not
the
in the 80s. That's
Bama,
most
but
players
still.
don't. Here's the thing about most college players now, they don't know the history of a lot of these programs. They look at the
That's
history now.
Yeah.
It's why Clemson has done very well recruiting now because they've won recently. No one's looked at the fact that Clemson wasn't a really big program until recently. It's why Georgia can do really well now. No one cares that Herschel Walker won the Heisman Trophy in the 80s and they won the championship.
Yeah.
They're looking at the fact that Georgia is now solely competing with Alabama for the top spot in the SEC.
Yeah, and adding on to your point too, I feel like back in the day, when we were talking 70s, 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, I don't think recruiting was as much of a national landscape as it is. I think that the SEC was confined and the Big Ten was confined.
That's why Miami did so well. It was confined to Dade
Florida,
County.
to that area.
That.
But
And
now it's
we have
regional.
USC's coming to Florida. Penn State's coming to Florida. Penn State gets a lot of recruits from Florida.
Yeah.
Now Georgia.
But that's because of ING
Bama.
as well.
Yeah.
Football is definitely, I will agree, football has definitely changed the way that it's played, where it's a lot more the big private schools that you want to get all these recruits from.
But I actually think it's interesting that Ohio State is still... Look, when you lose a coach like Urban Meyer, usually you're not expected to do that well.
Mm-hmm.
Ohio State under O'Day has stayed consistently in the top of the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Even with the fact that you have Michigan, who under Harbaugh's finally reached what everyone thought it was going to be when he first got hired.
Yeah.
And the fact you're still competing with Penn State. The fact that even though Michigan State had a down year, they're still always very good.
Yeah.
The East of the Big Ten is one of the most competitive conferences in football.
I would say second most besides the SEC, or maybe third besides the two SEC.
Yeah, I would say the SEC over as a whole is pretty good. Although the West is not.
It's taken a big dip.
It has because Texas A&M just hasn't been where it is supposed to be. LSU played a lot better than they did the initial.
They almost made the college football playoff.
But then you're playing teams like Vandy and Arkansas, and
it's such a bar drive.
Yeah, it's not.
Arkansas is so sad.
They're sad. Yeah, and then you have Missouri.
Yeah,
It's like
Alabama, Texas. So where is Texas going to go? And Oklahoma.
I don't know how they might realign it the way the Big Ten did when they originally had it, which wasn't by East and West. It was like Legends and something else.
Okay.
Yeah, I forget what that was.
Yeah, I forget. But basically, they split it up like it was two divisions that weren't East and West. It's what the Big Ten's going to have to do with USC and UCLA.
Or they could just realign it in a way that
it will actually be fun to watch the SEC instead of knowing that Bama's going to win the West every single year.
Yeah.
And now
I don't know. It depends with that. Because here's the thing. The Big 12 has no defense. SEC is known for defense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what happens when Oklahoma has to play against Alabama and LSU and Florida.
The most interesting thing to me when the conferences do realign is the scheduling and the teams that are going to be exposed. Think about for the Big Ten, it feels like Penn State every year has a great team, and then they just run into Michigan or Ohio State. Yeah. And now you're just adding USC and UCLA, who are two great schools.
USC especially.
UCLA's been.
I'm just going to say this: UCLA or not UCLA. USC is going to be a competitor for years to come, as long as
Lincoln Riley.
Yeah,
yeah.
And here's the other thing, especially when you're in college football. The biggest position, I mean, it's true in the NFL, but the biggest position is quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Obviously. Now, when you're able to say that even if you haven't won a national championship, think about all the Heisman Trophy winners that Lincoln Riley was able to produce in Oklahoma, and then he just produced one in USC as well with Caleb Williams. Like, I know that Spencer Rattler didn't work out, but there was a reason why he moved on to Caleb Williams very early.
Yeah, and like you said, like it felt like every year Lincoln Riley had a player sitting in the last 3 or 4 years.
I don't remember a school that was able to produce quarterbacks the way, like, because USC, because USC was always the running back school. LSU, the quarterback school, or the quarterback school.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama, the defensive line, offensive line school.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought of like a quarterback school. Like there was never one that was like really like a
it's
school
just
that
bounced around.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And then suddenly you see this like Oklahoma, you just start producing, and it's not like all those guys. Most of those guys were transfers before they won those. Like wasn't Baker
was a transfer.
Yeah, Baker was a transfer. Jalen Hurts was a transfer.
Yeah. Kyler, I don't know.
Was he not a transfer?
No,
I don't think he was. He might have been the only one who
That's
wasn't.
right.
But besides, like, to have two guys who transferred into your program
and have
then
very similar careers.
Yeah, and to be consistently good is incredible as a coach.
Yeah, and like you saw the immense leap that Hurts took from Bama to Oklahoma. Like he was a different player.
Yeah.
And then that made him a second round pick.
Yeah.
And it made him a
But
top
he's
2
a quarterback,
MVP.
yeah.
He's an MVP.
The way that he read, and look, the Big 12 is not, I mentioned this, and everyone knows this, the Big 12 is not known for defense. However, his ability to read defenses was completely different from his time at Bama to what it was at Oklahoma.
Uh-huh.
It's going to be interesting to watch TCU play at a big stage like this because the Big 12 historically has done terribly in the college football playoff. And it's only been Oklahoma, but Oklahoma, as great as the quarterbacks have been, as great as the coach of Lincoln Riley is, they always get run off by some of these other teams.
Yeah.
Also, guess how many 5-star recruits TCU has?
Is it less than 10?
One.
Wow. That's very impressive.
They have one 5-star recruit.
That just makes me root for them way more.
Yeah.
Dude.
So the thing is, like, most of their guys are, I think most of their guys are third 3-star. I think it's like 30. I saw on like Fox Sports. I think it's like 30 of them are like 3-star, which isn't terrible.
No,
but to be going up against schools like
Georgia
20
million
and
Michigan has gotten a lot of So it's
it's a lot like Cincinnati last year.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like Cincinnati got kind of snubbed this year. Like, obviously they didn't play well. I'm not saying Cincinnati should make the playoff, but I'm saying, like, last year, everyone was dragging Cincinnati for not having all these recruits, for not being
They played with... I hadn't seen a semifinal game that was that close.
Like, yeah, they got blown up by score-wise, but their defense held up.
But they weren't blown... What was the final score?
It was 27, 20, or to 6. Something like I think it was 27. It was only
they lost by 2 touchdowns.
Three touchdowns.
Okay, which is sort of a blowout.
I mean,
but in college football,
when you watch Georgia get blown out 34-0 by Georgia, or Michigan get blown out by 34-0 Georgia, or like some of these other scores were ridiculous. The college football playoff has not been that close.
Which is why I love that
27-6.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So
I guess that is a blowout.
When it comes to the college football playoff, something needs to be done to make some of these games more competitive. I don't know if it's expanding playoff. I don't know what it is.
I want to see the expanded playoffs. I know it might not help score-wise, but at least make it more interesting to see some of the like other teams that could possibly compete. Any like
give them a chance.
For example, Tennessee could easily be competitive.
They could
with any of these playoffs.
Yeah.
They really played with Georgia.
They played with Georgia. They beat Alabama in a very close game.
Yeah.
So
they would be.
Who knows? Like I mean, and there's other teams that in the top 10 who could USC.
Yeah, USC got
easily. Like I know that they lost badly in one game, but that's the issue with college football right now.
Yeah.
You get blown out in one game that it's a tough game.
Yeah.
And then you're out of it.
Yeah, I agree with you, and like I'm not really sure. I'm with Aiden. Like I don't know if the college football expansion.
I disagree. I think it will, but I
do want to see it though. I want to see it.
I want to see it.
It's worth a shot.
It is worth a shot, and you'll see teams like Penn State only has 2 losses, and it was the 2 best teams that they played all season.
Yeah,
but they were still pretty competitive in the Ohio State game and competitive in the first half of the Michigan game until they got completely run out the door.
Yeah.
But there's a chance that they somehow win like one of these crazy games. It happens in college football. I'm just so tired of watching. It's not really the championship games have been pretty good historically, but some of these playoff games, I'm not even that excited to watch them. Like I'm excited this year because you get to watch TCU. I'm excited to see the Georgia, Ohio State playing an SEC team, which is really fun. But most like last year, it was exciting to see a new team in Cincinnati. It was exciting to see a new team in Michigan and Georgia. that you kind of knew what was going to happen already.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't really need to watch some of these games. When Clemson, there was a couple of years where Clemson played Oklahoma, and it was pretty clear what was going to happen.
Yeah,
And
and then like Oklahoma was good, but you knew.
Yeah,
like Clemson was just miles back.
So the first year you didn't really know, but it was then like the third year that Oklahoma made it, and they were like playing like Clemson or Alabama again. It was like, okay,
yeah,
we've seen you guys twice already get completely blown out. Yeah. We don't really want to watch you anymore.
Yeah.
Same with Ohio State in a couple games when they were playing like Bama and Clemson. It's like you played them twice already. Like you beat Bama the 1 year, won the championship, and then you got blown out the couple other times.
Yeah.
We're tired of seeing this.
Yeah.
Like I kind of know that Georgia's going to blow out Alabama. I have questions about the Michigan TCU game, but like you said, Jack, the Georgia game's going to be blowout.
Yeah.
And it's already feeling it. If Ohio State can make it a game, it will be exciting. But I think Georgia's going to win.
Yeah.
Easily. So something's got to be changed because when it comes to college football fans, they want something different. The AP poll didn't work because there's a couple times where there was like tiebreakers and Colorado kind of got screwed of being the sole champion the 1 year in 1990. Mm-hmm. The two did not work. The two games did not. The two teams did not work at all.
No, that was horrible.
This has been a little bit better, but at the beginning it was fun.
I say they combine the BCS and the 12 teams where it's done by a computer. And then there's 12 teams that make it.
Yeah, I think
because I know that people like I like the idea, and I'm just gonna say this: I don't love the idea with computers with other things like refs or umpires. Yeah. But when it comes to ranking teams, you need a structure. It can't be arbitrary, and it's way too arbitrary at this point to choose 4 teams, and I think even 12 because you're gonna come down to like the last 2. And I think, like, once you have, like, the bowl, like, the conference winners, they'll make it easier. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, I feel like going back to the BCS system of a computer is okay as long as you have more than 2 teams.
Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up the show, the one point I want to make, college football will never be competitive between every single school.
But the NIL is definitely helping.
It's helped, but here's the thing. When you look at the FCS, the one team that always wins is North Dakota State. They might not win every single year, but they're always want to get top team.
Yeah.
Bama's always going to be a top team. Georgia at this point is always going to be a top team. Clemson, there's going to be like 10 schools that are always up there. And that's just the way college football is. Yes. College football fans have accepted that at this point, I think.
Yes.
It's still fun to watch college football. It's fun to watch all these other teams. Keeping all these extra bowl games is fun because you get to watch a team all the way through. Maybe they're not going to win the championship, but they still win a bowl game and have a 10-win season. That's fun to watch. That's just the way college football is. It's still fun to watch. I'm still so excited for these playoffs. And I think that's a good way to wrap up this episode.
Oh, wait, one more thing. Yeah. Colorado 2024 national championships. Well, 2025.
I do not want to jump on the ship.
2025.
I don't want to. I feel like it's going to
go.
Like
2024 season, 2025 championship. It will be the year that Colorado wins the national championship.
Dude, it seems way too obvious. Like, I feel like I've seen this before, and I
don't care. Deion Sanders,
I like him. I want
he's winning.
Well, but I do not.
Two things about that. They're going to go win the national championship. It's going to flame out. Either way, your eyes are going to be on Colorado and Deion Sanders.
We'll see you next Saturday at 2.